So for today's topic, we are going to solve the quadratic equation. So when solving the quadratic equation, we need to consider different ways or meron tayong mga different ways para ma-solve natin yung quadratic equation. So first is, let me say this again, that the highest degree of a quadratic equation is 2 or the highest exponent is 2. So therefore, the number of the solution is 2, such as x sub 1 and x sub 2. So there are ways to get the solution of the quadratic equation. So first is the extracting the square root, and then second is factoring, third is completing the square, and fourth is solving using quadratic formula. So for today's video, we are going to learn how to extract the square root and of course the factoring. So to proceed, in solving quadratic equation by extracting the square root. So quadratic equation in the form of ax squared plus c is equal to 0. If you can see the equation that we don't have the linear term. So dahil ang b natin is equal to 0. So we are going to use extracting the square root if ang ating quadratic equation is ax squared plus c is equal to 0. Then this is done using the following properties. So this is what we need to consider. So if c is greater than 0 or the constant ay positive number dahil greater than 0, then x squared is equal to c, may two real numbers or two real solutions siya or roots. So therefore, x is equal to positive and negative square root. If naman ang ating c ay is equal to 0 or the constant is equal to 0, then x squared is equal to c has one real solution. So therefore, x is equal to 0. Then if ang c natin or the constant is less than 0, which is our negative numbers, then x squared is equal to c, wala siyang real solutions. So to further understand, let me give you an example. So first is to find the solution of the equation x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. So to solve this, so the method is to isolate x squared. When we say isolate on one side, kailangan mag-isa lang siya. So ibig sabihin, dapat itong ating equation na x squared minus 25, dapat yung x squared ay mag-isa lang siya. So kaya ang gagawin natin is we are going to isolate and then or transpose this negative 25 to the other side. So after transposing negative 25 to the other side, so pag nag-transpose tayo, the sign will change and then it becomes x squared is equal to positive 25. If you can see now, the x squared is now isolated in one side. So now we can move to next step, which is to get the square root of the of both sides. So para ma-solve natin yung x. So to get the square root of both sides, so square root natin tong both side na to. And then after that is to simplify. So how are we going to simplify this? So we can cancel the radical and the squared, and ang remaining natin ay x, which is eto na. And then positive negative of square root of 25. So we need to get the square root of 25. And then the answer is 5. So therefore, since meron tayong positive and negative, ang ating solution ay x is equal to 5 and x is equal to negative 5. So dahil ito yung ating solutions, how are we going to check if this is correct? So what are we going to do is to substitute the value of x to our original equation. Asan po ba yung original equation natin? So ang original equation po natin ay etong x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. Kailangan mag-equal siya sa 0 pag sinubstitute natin yung value ng x. So let's try if the value of x, So, ibig sabihin, dalawa yung i-check natin kasi dalawa yung value ng x natin. So, let's try if the x is positive 5, what are we going to do is to substitute to the equation. So, yung x squared natin magiging 5 squared minus 25 is equal to 0. So, to solve the 5 squared, so what is 5 squared? So, 5 times 5 is equal to 25. Then, minus natin sa 25 is equal to 0. Then, 25 minus 25 is equal to 0. Then, equal siya sa 0. So, therefore, we are correct in the first solution that na meron tayo. So, next is to check the second solution that we have, which is negative 5. So, let's check the x is equal to negative 5 if this solution is correct. So, let's substitute negative 5. So, magiging negative 5 squared minus 25 natin is equal to 0. So, what is negative 5 squared? So, pag minultiply natin, negative 5 times negative 5, it becomes positive 25. Then, subtract natin sa 25, then equal siya sa 0. Then, simplify, 25 minus 25 is 0, then equal siya sa 0. So, therefore, tama din yung ating second solution ng negative 5. So, ganun po ang pag-check ng ating equation. And ganun din po ang paggamit ng ating square root or the way ng extracting the roots. So, to have another example, let's proceed. So, for our example number 2, we have the given 2x squared plus 8 is equal to 0. So, what are we going to do is to transpose the constant to the other side kasi kailangan yung x squared is naka-isolate on the one side. So, if we are going to transpose, magiging 2x squared is equal to negative 8. Then, sabi x lang dapat yung nandito. So, to remove the constant, we will divide both side by 2. So, pag dinivide natin siya both side by 2, so saan ba natin siya i-divide? Kung ano yung constant ng ating quadratic or nung kasama ng ating variable, doon natin siya i-divide para ma-cancel or ma-eliminate natin yung coefficient niya. So, kaya dinivide natin siya sa 2 para ma-eliminate natin itong 2. So, 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. Then, ang natira natin ay x squared. So, eto na yung x squared natin. And then, equal siya sa negative 8 over 2. Pag sinimplify natin is negative 4. So, if you remember the properties or yung dapat nating i-consider kanina, if the constant is less than 0 or negative number, then there is no solution. So, the constant natin dito is negative 4. So, it is less than 0. Then, this equation has no real solution or roots dahil we cannot simplify the negative 4 inside the radical sign. So, ganyan po ang solve ng ating quadratic equation using the extracting the roots. Now, let's proceed to factoring. So, in solving quadratic equation by factoring, so we are going to transform the quadratic equation into general form or into standard form if necessary. If ever na ang ating quadratic equation hindi standard form or general form, then we need to transform it. Then after that is we are going to factor the quadratic expression or the equation. So we are going to apply the zero product property by setting each factor of the quadratic expression na equal siya sa 0. So ano ba yung zero product property? If the product of two real numbers is 0, then either of the two is equal to 0 or both numbers are equal to 0. So we are going to solve each resulting equation, and then we are going to check the values of the variable obtained by substituting each in the original equation. So sa pag-check ng ating values ng ating variable is katulad lang din nung pinakita ko kanina. We are going to substitute na nakuha nating solution. So to further understand, let me give you an example. So for example, number 1, we are going to find the solution of the equation ng x squared plus 8x plus 15 is equal to 0. So first is we need to consider if this is in general form or in standard form. Since this equation is in standard form, we'll proceed in factoring. So paano ba tayo magpa-factor? So first, if walang coefficient or hindi mas mataas sa 1 yung coefficient ng quadratic term natin, i-consider natin is the factor of the third term. Ano bang factor ng third term? So let's cite the factors of the third term. So 15 times 1 is the factor of 15. Negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 5 is also the factor of 15. Dahil negative 3 times negative 5 is equal to 15. Then another factor is 3 or positive 3 times positive 5. So positive 3 times positive 5 is equal to 15. So how are we going to know ano dito yung factor na kukunin natin? So lahat yan equal to 15. So after natin ma-check or ma-multiply if the answer, if we multiply this factor, dapat constant yung sagot. And then, malalaman lang natin kung siya yung factor ng nakukunin natin if pag inad natin ang factor, ang magiging sagot ay yung real number b natin or yung 8 natin. So, let's try to add. So, 15 times 1 muna is equal to 15. So, equal siya sa constant natin. Constant term natin. Pag pinag-add naman natin siya, it is equal to 16. So, hindi siya equal sa 8 natin dito. So, ibig sabihin, hindi na ito yung kukunin natin. So, next naman yung negative 3 and negative 5. When we multiply, the answer is positive 15. But when we add or get the sum of this, negative 3 plus negative 5, it is equal to negative 8. So, same siya ng ating number, but the sign is different. So, dapat positive 8 yung makuha natin. So, ibig sabihin, hindi na ito yung kukunin natin. So, next is the positive 3 and positive 5. When we multiply it, it becomes positive 15. And then, kapag inad naman natin, 3 plus 5 is equal to positive 8. So, equal siya sa ating real number b. Therefore, ito yung kukunin nating factor. So, paano ba yung gagawin natin? Magiging, let's put a parenthesis, 2 parentheses, no? And then put the factor. So, 3 and 5. So, ano ba yung magiging sign niya? Kung ano yung sign ng factor natin, yun din yung sign dito. So, since positive yan, so positive din dito or plus. And then next, to get the factor dito, yung missing, is to factor the quadratic term. So, anong gagawin natin para makuha natin yung factor? So, the factor of x squared is x times x. So, ibig sabihin, dito natin siya ilalagay. So, kaya kung nakita natin sa example, kaya natin nakuha ito dahil sa pag-factoring natin. Then, after that, equal to 0. So, after yan, sabi, we need to equate both factors or set each factors sa ating equal to 0, no? So, ibig sabihin, magiging x plus 3. So, ito yung ating first factor. Set natin equal to 0. Kaya naging x plus 3 is equal to 0. And then yung second factor natin na x plus 5, we will set it to equal to 0. Kaya naging x plus 5 is equal to 0. And then, to get the roots or the solution, para makuha natin yung value ng x, what are we going to do is to transpose. Para makuha lang natin tong value ng x. Ta-transpose natin yung positive 3, kaya magiging x is equal to negative 3. Next is yung second factor natin. X plus 5 is equal to 0. So, to get the factor or the solution, transpose positive 5, magiging negative 5. Therefore, the value of x is negative 5. So, how are we going to know if this is correct? So, katulad ng ginawa natin, we are going to substitute the value of x sa ating original equation. So, ito yung ating original equation. So, first, let's substitute the value of x, which is negative 3. So, magiging negative 3 squared plus 8 times negative 3 plus 15 is equal to 0. Then, when we simplify, negative 3 squared is equal to 9. Then, positive 8 times negative 3 is equal to negative 24. Then, plus 15 is equal to 0. Then, let's simplify. 9 minus 24 plus 15, it is equal to 0. Then, equal siya sa 0. So, ibig sabihin, it is correct dahil 0 is equal to 0. So, now, let's check the another solution, which is negative 5. So, substitute the value of x to our original equation. So, ang gagawin natin, negative 5 squared plus 8 times negative 5 plus 15 is equal to 0. So, simplify, negative 5 squared is equal to positive 25. Then, positive 8 times negative 5 is equal to negative 40. And then, plus 15 natin is equal to 0. Then, when we simplify this 25 minus 40 plus 15 is equal to 0, 0 siya. So, therefore, equal siya dahil 0 is equal to 0. So, ganun lang po yung sa pagpa-factoring and sa ating pag-check. So, let's move to second example to find the solution of the equation. So, x squared minus 49 is equal to 0. Sabi kanina, we can use the extracting the square root, no? If we don't have a linear term. But, not all equation na walang linear term can be solved using the extracting the square root. So, for example, ayan. So, eto, sa factoring, we can use extracting the square root. Pero, we will show also na pwede rin siyang isolve using factoring. So, di ba, pag tinranspose natin ito, magiging positive 49. So, using the square root, no? So, x squared is equal to positive 49. Then, get the square root of both sides. So, ang mangyayari, ang magiging sagot natin ay x plus x is equal to positive and negative 7. Dahil ang square root ng 49 natin ay 7. So, therefore, x is equal to 7 and x is equal to negative 7. So, how are we going to do this if we are using or if we will use the factoring? So, not unlike na magta-transpose tayo para iset yung ating quadratic term in one side, dito, hindi tayo magta-transpose. What are we going to do is to get the factor. So, if both quadratic and also the constant is both perfect square, we can get the square root of or the factor of 49. Ano ba yung factor ng 49? So, positive 7 and negative 7 kasi positive 7 times negative 7 is equal to negative 49. So, equal na siya. Then, get the factor of the quadratic term, which is x squared. That is equal to x times x. So, therefore, the factor of x squared minus 49 is equal to x plus 7 times the quantity of x minus 7, then equal to 0. Then next is to equate both factors to 0. So what are we going to do is to gawin siyang zero product property, which is we are going to set each factor equal to 0. So x plus 7 equal to 0. Then yung second factor natin na x minus 7 is equal to 0. Then after that, we are going to transpose x is equal to negative 7 dahil nag-transpose tayo ng positive 7, magiging negative 7. And the other one is when we transpose negative 7, magiging positive 7. So therefore, the solution that we have, or the roots, or x is equal to negative 7 and x is equal to positive 7. So how are we going to check this? So we will use the substitution method. So let's substitute the x minus 7, x is equal to negative 7. So yung original equation natin is x squared minus 49 is equal to 0. So therefore, negative 7 squared minus 49 is equal to 0. So negative 7, negative 7 squared is equal to 49. Then subtract natin sa 49, it is equal to 0. Then 0 is equal to 0. So the other solution is positive 7. So let's try to substitute it. So 7 squared is equal to, minus 49 is equal to 0. Then 7 squared is equal to 49. Then subtract natin yung 49 sa 49. Then equal siya sa 0. Therefore, 0 is equal to 0. So, ayan po yung pagkuha natin ng ating solutions using factoring. So, I hope you learned a lot and thank you for listening.